Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Theology Side Quest. I am Fasih,
And I'm Laura.
and we've been discussing the Ten Commandments. We've done Commandments 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and we skipped the Commandment 4, which is about Sabbath. And in this episode, we're going to address the commandment of Sabbath.
There's a lot to unpack, so we decided that we were going to dedicate an episode to it because there's a lot of moving parts here.
There's a lot to say. I think let's just read what the verses say. So this is found in the Torah, which is the Old Testament. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God, on which you must not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant or livestock, nor the foreigner within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but on the seventh day he rested. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy.
I used to think, what do you mean God got tired? Like he needed a nap? Like, what are you talking about?
I think the Hebrew or Aramaic wording, Hebrew wording is more like he stopped. It's not like rested in the way that humans need to rest, sleep, etc. Now, there's an interesting bit.
Okay.
We have to talk about what we can find in the New Testament. And part of what is found in the New Testament is why the Jews do not consider Jesus as the Messiah. What's that one in Mark 2? So this is from 25 to 28. One Sabbath, Jesus was passing through the grain fields, and his disciples began to pick the heads of grain as they walked along. So the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" Jesus replied, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? During the high priesthood of Abiathar, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which was lawful only for the priests, and he gave some to his companions as well." Then Jesus declared, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath."
Now, we've heard a lot about this in some of the conversations and debates, Son of Man, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And one of the things that, we hear consistently was that this was Jesus announcing his divinity, because it says Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. So he wasn't saying he's God and so he's greater than Sabbath. He's telling them that he has the authority to tell you what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. It wasn't him telling them that he wasn't telling them that it was done away with for them, but he was also telling them not to starve to death because it was Sabbath.
The thing that stands out to me is this part, on which you must not do any work. Now, what do you say would be work? Because here's the thing. If you consider even moving your leg work, then you're just going to have to lie down. But then even lying down, breathing would also be considered work. So you should stop breathing. You should stop blinking your eyes.
Yes.
You should stop existing. So
We're gonna
where
put
do you
you-
draw the line?
We're going to
What
put you
does
in
it
a medically induced coma today.
But then itself it's doing work. You would be putting yourself in coma.
Friday before sundown, we'll put you into a coma.
There's no way you can address this without setting a limit of what work is.
Right.
When I read this, I was like, okay, so money-making work. So that doesn't mean that you cannot cook, that you cannot pour yourself a glass of water, that you cannot take the elevator, as you like to point out, Laura.
Let's not press the buttons on the elevator.
It's not so much that you stop existing or you have to stop breathing. It's money-making exercises. That's what is considered work because of this specific part where it said, nor your manservant or maidservant or livestock. So you can't use them for money-making exercise. That's the part.
Also, we have to understand, who was this for? Because this was done as a perpetual sign for this particular group, and that also is important. So one of the conversations that I've had concerning this in particular, who was this meant for, right? And it's not a universal commandment. It's not something that can be applied to all of us. It was specific to this group of people as a perpetual, I guess, sign.
And remember, the thing is to keep it holy so that you remember the Lord. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God, on which you must not do any work. Sabbath to the Lord. So what are you doing? If you're not working, what else do you need to do? You need to be praying. You need to be remembering. Okay? You need to be remembering the Lord that gave you all of these blessings, all of this livestock, all of your household property, etc. That's what you need to be doing. And now we gotta talk about what happened. The Son of Man, the reference to the Son of Man. So I read from the New Testament, from Mark chapter 2, verse 25 to 28, right? Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. So what did you say? That it's not saying that Jesus is not declaring his divinity. It's that there's a utility and there's a part where it needs to be observed, right? What was
Right.
it?
He was telling them that he had authority to tell them what was lawful and what wasn't lawful. He was telling them, not to starve to death because today's Sabbath. So one of the things that we get a lot was that he was declaring divinity because he said that the Son of Man was Lord also of the Sabbath. And this wasn't him saying, I'm God and I created the Sabbath. What he was saying was that he had the authority to tell you what was lawful and what wasn't.
And he does that by giving the example of David, right? Which can be found in 1 Samuel chapter 21. Let me just read these 6 verses. Then David came to Nob, to Ahimelech, the priest, and when Ahimelech met David, he trembled and asked him, Why are you alone? Why is no one with you? The king has given me a mission, David replied. He told me no one is to know about the mission on which I am sending you, and I have directed my young men to meet me at a certain place. Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever can be found. There is no common bread on hand, the priest replied, but there is some consecrated bread, provided that the young men have kept themselves from women. David answered, Women have indeed been kept from us, as is usual when I set out, and the bodies of the young men are holy even on common missions. How much more so today? So the priest gave him the consecrated bread, since there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which had been removed from before the Lord and replaced with hot bread on the day it was taken away. So again, this wasn't bread that was supposed to be given to people who weren't priests,
Yes.
right? What did you call it? The showbread, right?
Yes.
So again, the priest made a decision to give David the bread.
So, what was the showbread? That's another thing. So the showbread was supposed to be symbolic, and the priests, of course, were able to consume it, but it wasn't lawful for anyone else. They had 12. This was supposed to be representative of these 12 tribes. They would have 12 loaves, and they would put them out.
I think the bottom line being that the parallel here I find is David didn't go hungry and he ate the consecrated bread. And Jesus was telling them, you shouldn't need to go hungry. You're not picking the grain for selling. The Sabbath was made for man, not that the man was made for Sabbath. The Son of Man is the specific reference that they keep using, like you said. They keep coming back and saying that this is what is Jesus declaring himself to be divine. And yet, when we look at the Hebrew and Aramaic in the Old Testament, I dug through some of the references where Son of Man is used. So there's Numbers 23 and 19. Then there's Job 35. Your wickedness concerns a man like yourself, and your righteousness a son of man. So Numbers, Job, Psalm, Isaiah, Ezekiel, all of these references have some form of Ben Adam, which basically in Arabic would be Bani Adam. Okay? So Hebrew, Aramaic, Ben Adam, or Leven Adam, Yuven Adam, Yumiven Adam. So these are different forms of the same formulation of Ben Adam. In Arabic, it would be Bani Adam. In Ezekiel, Son of Man is mentioned over 90 times. And Ezekiel is being mentioned as Son of Man. Again, that's Ben Adam.
And so what is this Son of Man or sons of men? What does this mean?
It just means sons of our father, Adam alayhi salam.
So
Nothing else. Son of Man.
Ben Adam.
We are men. How can human beings, how can man be God? Man is not equal to God. But then there's this one specific reference that they use, which is Daniel 7:13. And you and I have had so many conversations amongst ourselves and with other Christians about Daniel 7:13. And in that, there's a specific Aramaic thing being used. It says kevar enas. It doesn't say ben Adam. It says kevar enas. Nas is for human, both in Arabic and Aramaic, and I think also in Hebrew.
Yeah, so that's one of the unique things about the book of Daniel is the book of Daniel it's not just written in Hebrew, it's also written in Aramaic. So it's like you have a portion that's Aramaic. So that you have that difference.
This is the only reference where kevar anas is used. And it says the translation is one like a son of man, or on Safaria it is translated as, what was it? Human-like, right?
Yes.
So it was human-like. Not human, human-like. But then when Christians come and use this reference, Daniel 7:13, and connect it to Mark. So in Mark 14, this sometimes is used as a cross-reference. But Jesus remained silent and made no reply. Again, the high priest questioned him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," said Jesus. "And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." But he doesn't use one like the Son of Man. He uses Son of Man, which would be Ben Adam. In both Hebrew and Aramaic, it would not be Kevar Enas. Because Kevar Enas is one like the Son of Man or human-like.
Okay. But I want you to see a difference here. Whenever you are reading in Daniel, there's this human like that's approaching,
Yes.
and Jesus is coming with.
Yes.
So there's a difference.
But here lies the problem with the Trinitarian doctrine. Because what does it say? 100% man, 100% God. This is, you cannot
Is it real?
use the term kevar enas for Jesus. It breaks what's the word they use? Hypostatic union.
Yes. Okay. But one of the things that I find interesting here is that there are other descriptions of this event. So if you go to Luke 22, 66 through 71.
A side quest on this now. we haven't even got to the Quranic verses about Sabbath.
That's fine.
What is it? Luke 22?
22 and 66 start there.
At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and scribes, met together. They led Jesus into their Sanhedrin and said, "If you are the Christ, tell us." Jesus answered, "If I tell you, you will not believe. And if I ask you a question, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." So they all asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He replied, "You say that I am."
You say that I am. All right. With the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. No, I'm kidding. I will never not quote that. Okay, so then go to Matthew 26 and 57.
Those who had arrested Jesus led him away to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and elders had gathered. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. Now the chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin were seeking false testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days." So the high priest stood up and asked him, "Have you no answer? What are these men testifying against you?" But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." "You have said it yourself," Jesus answered, "but I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." These are all 3 very different things.
So it begs the question,
What really
which is
happened?
the accurate.
They're all describing it so differently.
You see just this like common the one common thing that you see here is that you'll see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. That's the only commonality here. The rest of these things are all different. So which do we take?
None.
Well, I mean, you can take the common vein, but it's just interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it still doesn't say Kevar Nas, it says Ben Adam. That's the thing that I wanted to point out. The Trinitarian doctrine says 100% man, 100% God. But if you're 100%, you cannot be 100% like a man, like the Son of Man. You are either the Son of Man or not. You can make things like the Son of Man. You can make things human-like. Portraits can be human-like. Robots can be human-like. There's many, many things that can be human-like, but we wouldn't call them humans.
Mhm.
Well, this is what I need to discuss, like, for the New Testament. I think we should say about what's found in the Quran. So when we read the Quran, we find that the Sabbath was a thing, but not for everybody. It was only given to like a group of Jews. So they were the ones who were supposed to keep the Sabbath because they went into law breaking so much, things were made difficult for them. The first verse we should read is Surah An-Nisa, which is chapter 4, verse 154. We raised over them the mount for their covenant, and we said to them, enter the gate bowing humbly, and we said to them, do not transgress on Sabbath. And we took from them a solemn covenant. So this is said to them as a mount. So this is a difficult test for them, by the way, based on what they used to do. I mean, I was listening to this Jewish rabbi on YouTube. His name is Tovia Singer. People should go and see what he has to say about certain... I mean, if you're a Jew or even a Christian, go listen to him and see what he says about it. There's things that I disagree with the way he says it. But he addressed this one specific thing, which is in chapter 2, verse 65. Do you have that verse as well?
I do. And you certainly know about those among you who transgress concerning the Sabbath. So we said to them, be apes, despised.
So Tovia Singer says that be apes despised. He doesn't take it as an insult to all the Jews. He says that Jews are being called worse things in their Tanakh in itself because they were transgressing the laws. And specifically, the people who were transgressing the laws are being called these things. So sometimes they will come and make a fuss about, oh, no, the Quran says that they were apes. No, it's the lawbreakers.
Because they transgress the Sabbath.
They transgress Sabbath.
So there's also 7 and 163. Ask them about the people of the town which was by the sea who broke the Sabbath. During the Sabbath, abundant fish would come to them clearly visible, but on the other days the fish were never seen. In this way we tested them for their rebelliousness. When some of the righteous among them questioned their fellow Sabbath keepers, why do you bother to warn those Sabbath breakers who will either be destroyed or severely punished by Allah? They replied, just to be free from your Lord's blame, and so perhaps they may abstain. When they ignored the warning they were given, we rescued those who used to warn against evil and overtook the wrongdoers with a dreadful punishment for their rebelliousness. When they said, this is basically the same story. When they stubbornly persisted in violation, we said to them, be disgraced apes.
Again, the emphasis is on the lawbreakers, the rebellious people. I mean, there's definitely a group of Jews being called righteous. So it's not in all... whenever these certain people are being rebuked, it's the lawbreakers that are being rebuked. Because why would God rebuke people who keep the law?
Right.
Jesus never did. None of the prophets rebuked the people who kept the law.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the prophets only came to rebuke the lawbreakers. This reminds me of that Canaanite story, the Canaanite woman story. What does Jesus say? I only came for the lost sheep of Israel, according to the Greek Testament. He doesn't say the sheep of Israel. He says the lost sheep of Israel, the lawbreakers.
So then this begs the question, who all of these statements and all of these things that people apply to themselves, who was it for? Was it for them? Or was it for those
the Sabbath?
lost? No. Talking about Jesus, right? Because what did he tell her? He said, I've only come for these people.
So he's the one guiding them back to lawfulness, but they were still being rebellious. Or at least a group of them were still being rebellious. Not all of them. Some of them did follow Jesus.
All of these things are, it's like
it's a thread that connects.
It is. And it's like you have like this commonality, right? That just like flows. And it's just amazing sometimes to me how beautifully interwoven things are whenever you allow yourself to see it. Now, there's some things that can never be reconciled because they're not supposed to be reconciled.
Yeah. So there's one more reference that I wanted to include, which was chapter 16, verse 124. It says the Sabbath was only made obligatory for those who differed about it. And indeed, your Lord will judge between them on the day of resurrection concerning that over which they used to differ.
Yes.
So there are people who may not have differed about what the Sabbath was for, which brings to mind Jesus. What was he doing? He was plucking some of the grain because he wanted to feed his followers. It wasn't for a money-making exercise. It was to fulfill their hunger.
So I think part of there's a certain amount of, I hate to say it this way, but there's a certain amount of idolatry that is or can be used in the Sabbath, right? And I think that in some ways this is what the Quran does is it kind of pulls you back from that, right? So, it lets you know, because they made a mess of it. The way that it speaks in the Quran, I mean, it's the way that it's presented, like for us. It just lets us know this isn't for us. This is something that was set aside for these people, and there were specific like conditions.
So I have to include one more reference to round it off. Remember when we started talking about Sabbath, we were talking about the remembrance of God
Yes.
and why you should not be trading on that day. The focus was not to do money-making activities, not that you should starve yourself, not that you should die of hunger or thirst, right? So there is a reference in the Quran for Muslims, which is chapter 62, verse 9. So this is Surah Jummah. O you who believe, when the call is made for prayer on Friday, hasten to the remembrance of Allah and leave off trade. That is better for you if you only knew. And when the prayer has ended, disperse through the land and seek Allah's bounty. As Muslims, we are still required to stop trading during the time of the prayer, of Friday prayer. So Sabbath in its capacity still stands, as in the remembrance. It's not a whole day, but the remembrance of Allah in a congregation is required. So there's many hadiths about congregation. So when Friday, so this is in Bukhari and Muslim, when Friday comes, the angels stand at the doors of the mosque recording who comes first. When the Imam sits on the mimbar, they fold their records and listen to the reminder. So there's many other references from hadith we can talk about Friday prayers, but I wanted to focus on what the Quran says.
Yes.
And the act of stopping trade and worshipping God still stand.
Yes. So I think one of the most important distinctions is, what's meant by work.
This is like a full circle moment.
Right.
We started talking
Like, I
about,
mean,
like, what do you consider work?
is it going to your job? Is it doing the things in your home that need to be done? The answer is, if you're looking at what the text says, or it was that you were to abstain from your money-making activities, and you were to have a day of remembrance.
Yes.
And listen, I can cook a meal while I'm in remembrance, or I can be prayerful the entire time that I'm cooking a meal because I've done it.
Yes.
So I think that there are times whenever you do things out of an abundance of caution because, you don't want to be accidentally wrong. And then there are times when you deliberately take things to an extreme. And like you were saying, I'm going to lay here. I'm not going to move. I'm just going to blink and breathe. So in addition to having this seventh day of rest, this Sabbath day, there was also festival rest days, which they also called Sabbath. And this was, basically rest days and like ritual obedience days. And then they had Sabbath years, which were years of restraint, years that they let the land rest, years in which they did like a financial restraint. And so these were just basically like in whatever capacity, it was like ritual rest, or that way.
Think it's important just to remember God, basically.
Yes.
Not just on Sabbath, not just on Friday. I think the remembrance of God, we do it every single day in every single activity. We say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim when we start an activity, right? When we start cooking, I say it before we start recording this podcast. Remembrance of God is a great thing. Remember what has been given to you and be thankful and ask for whatever else you need. As we've seen from some of these things, that Sabbath wasn't for everybody. It's for like a specific group of Jews who were consistently breaking the law, to bring them back to lawfulness, to keep reminding them of what wrong they're doing. It's a reminder.
Yes.
And we see that Jesus already is remembering God, so why shouldn't he collect the grain to grind, to make flour, to feed his followers? Why shouldn't he do that? He's not making money off of it. It's not like he's not going to a mega church and running a concert. He's not doing that. So why shouldn't we feed ourselves? We should feed ourselves. I mean, we have to be considerate. We have to, what's the word that keeps coming up in the Quran? We have to have taqwa of Allah.
Yes.
That's what we require. Even for the Jews on Sabbath. With that, we will say goodbye to this episode. Thank you for joining us for this side quest on the Ten Commandments and what are the similarities and what are the differences from the Old Testament to the Quran and where Jesus is involved as well. And perhaps we'll choose another side quest to go on soon and we will see where we go.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? I really want to do the Mesha inscription one. The Moabite
Yes.
stone.
Okay, because that's what I was going to bring up earlier whenever I didn't need to bring it up.
I think we should do that. All right. Thank you for joining us. Read the Quran. If you're Christian or Jew, read the Quran. If you're Muslim, still read the Quran. Remind yourself of what it says. And we will see you for the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.